I'm a librarian, you probably know that. I've been a librarian for 35 years, and I believe there's been no better, no more exciting, no more important time to be a librarian. I work with classroom teachers to ensure that learners are effective users and producers of ideas and information. Now, I know that this section of our TED event is about the future, and I promise we'll get to the future. But first, I'd like to take you back. You see, I've been a high school librarian since 1989, and that's the year I'd like to start our story. Today, I bring you 3 composite learners. These are learners you may have met. These are learners you may be growing right now in your classrooms and your homes. These are learners who may have been you. So first, let's meet Sally Madonna. It's 1989, and in Alaska, the Exxon Valdez has just dumped hundreds of thousands of barrels of crude oil into Prince William Sound. And somewhere in suburban Philadelphia, Sally Madonna is a high school junior, very interested in the environment. Oh my God, this is totally tragic. I just came back from the library, and my librarian was so helpful. She grabbed a cart of books, and she told us about when to quote, when to summarize, and when to paraphrase, and she gave us a handout on MLA citations, so I know exactly what to do. I'm going straight to the card catalog because I know that everything in my library represents truth. Everything has been carefully selected by my librarian, and before that it was carefully edited and vetted by publishers and editors, so everything here is truth. But you know what? Nothing like this has ever happened before. And there are no books in my library on the Exxon Valdez disaster, and there's very little on oil spills. So you know what? I know exactly what to do next. You may think this is really geeky, but I love these big, green, old books. And I've got my cause list all ready. But you know what? These are gathered quarterly, and they're bound annually, and nothing like this has ever happened before. And so these big, green, old books have failed me. But I know what to do next.
Going back.
Nothing there. That was hard to find, folks. So you know what? You may not know this, but my librarian has a secret. She hooks me up with this service called Dialogue, and as long as I get a perfect search sentence with parentheses and quotation marks and all sorts of things in the right area, because we have to pay for the minute, we can connect with an acoustic coupler, and we can get really current information. All right, so now I have got current information from Dialogue, and I browsed through some great magazines and newspapers, and I've got my note cards already, and I can rock MLA citation. I know where every comma, every period, and every colon goes, and those note cards are going to go into a great outline when I shuffle them, and I am going to create the very best expository paper on the need to better regulate oil exploration in Prince William Sound. And my teacher is going to love it. Okay, now I told you this was an environmental scanner. I might have forgotten to tell you that. But right now, we are going to experience a great research shift. So right now, it's 2005. Okay, so there's a totally awesome research shift. Hurricane Katrina has just struck the Gulf Coast, wreaking havoc on New Orleans and its failed levees, forcing the evacuation of hundreds of thousands of people. And Sally Spears is wondering, OMG, this is totally tragic. I cannot understand why a city like New Orleans wasn't better prepared to deal with a catastrophe like this. So anyway, when my environmental class went to the library, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Don't tell my teacher. But I'm starting with Wikipedia because it's always so current, and I love it, and it's great. And then I'm going to go to CNN, and then I'm going to use Google. And this may sound totally geeky, but I live on the virtual library because those Pathfinders are pretty fabulous, and those databases give me academic journals and newspapers and magazines, and they're always up to date. And I've got an electronic note card generator. I don't have to worry about commas and periods and colons anymore. It's super fabulous. Now, I had a checklist when I was in 9th grade that told me how to evaluate websites. But all of a sudden, these things called blogs are coming up, and I don't really know what to make of those. I think they look like primary sources, but I'm really not sure. I know I need to evaluate them, and I'm thinking that maybe email will help. I could write my friend's sister in Tulane and see what happens. So anyway, I am going to create the very best outline, arguing for better preparedness, and I'm also a little worried about whether race or class had anything to do with the preparedness of the people in New Orleans. I'm going to collect everything, put it in my notebook after I highlight it, create a really great outline. I'm using Inspiration. It's a web-based product. And I am going to create the best PowerPoint ever created. My bullets are really going to take a stand. And my class is going to love it. Now look out, because here comes a crazy monster research shift. It's 2011. An earthquake in the Pacific has caused a tsunami in Japan, forcing the evacuation of hundreds of thousands of residents. Around the same time, news is flooding in about tornadoes in Missouri, Alabama, and Massachusetts. And somewhere in suburban Philadelphia, Sally Gaga is a high school junior, very interested in the environment. Oh my God, this is a totally legit tragedy. I wonder how our little township in Pennsylvania would be prepared to deal with these disasters. Do we have a plan? Would my neighbors know what to do and where to go? The president said, we can't control when and where a storm will hit, but we can control how we respond to it. So I need to do some work. And you know what? This is a completely inadequate container for my research. My research has to be transparent. I'm collaborating with people. I'm collaborating with my teacher, my librarian, my note-taking. It's all going to be online. I need to collect media and feeds and video. This notebook won't do whatever. Anyway. So don't tell my teacher, but I'm starting a YouTube because it's the only way I really can get my arms around this tragedy. How will I understand it? I need to see video. I need background vocabulary. I need to get context. So I'm going to start my research there. But I discovered that this is even better because it's going to gather all the news feeds and Wikipedia and YouTube and all the pictures that I need. And I know how to rock Google like no one else. I know everything that appears in more and even more and in the labs. And I know about this thing called a filter bubble. I know that my Google looks different from the Google of, say, an environmental scientist. So I need to log out, log back in, and make believe Google doesn't know who I am. I know about the Wonder Wheel, and I know about the news timeline, and I know about how to use Google Squared. I can rock Google. And this is going to sound really geeky, but I love the virtual library because I love the Pathfinders. My librarian has gathered global news for me, and my librarian has gathered all the digital storytelling tools and the Pathfinders and everything I need to know about academic environmental research, so I am set. But guess what? I don't need to live on the library page because I hope you have this too. I have a JSTOR widget on my Facebook page, and guess what else? I have research apps for my very favorite databases on my cell phone and my iPad. And guess what else? This may seem really geeky, but I love these things. These RSS feeds are really powerful. And once I do my search in my favorite database, I don't even have to go back there. I get stuff fed to me. Information is pushed. And I can do this not only in my databases, but in my very favorite blogs and in my news sources and everywhere else. But not all news is Western. I've discovered that too. Some news comes from another part of the world. But is the news that we're looking at really truth? Does truth come from a variety primary source. I discovered this nurse's blog. She was a first responder when the tsunami hit. But in light of what I saw about the gay girl in Damascus, I'm really not sure, and I need to look at these blogs very critically. You know what else I love? You may think this is really geeky, but I love hashtags because hashtags gather together news and feeds and allow me to discover who the experts are. Now, I need to be very careful because just last week we were doing a Middle East peace simulation, and we discovered there were 3 people tweeting as Benjamin Netanyahu. But once we discovered who the real Benjamin Netanyahu was, we were led immediately to all the news feeds and everything else and the official Israeli government Facebook page. Anyway, why would I even do all this work if I didn't leave a really positive academic footprint? I want people to see what I'm discovering. So from my local community, I am going to gather together a disaster plan on a portal. I am going to grab cameras from the library, do a Google Earth mashup, really pull this together, contact the township supervisor, present this at a town hall meeting, and make sure my little community knows what to do in case of disaster. Guess what else I know? I know that I can use copyrighted media as long as I transform it without even asking permission. I also know that I can exploit the Creative Commons and that I can apply a Creative Commons license to my own work. And I am going to show my work at the town hall meeting, and the community is going to love it. Now, let's look out, because here comes another kind of shift. Let's move from historical fiction to nonfiction, from composite to real learners. Research now can be transparent, interactive, meaningful, original. Student research can make a difference. Over the past couple of years, my kiddos and I have learned and shared together in so many new ways, pushing and learning about communication and information tools in ways we never thought before possible. Let me tell you about some real learners who shared their passions, who explored their passions through their research. Sam took the January 25th hashtag as a tool for research in serious political revolution. She considered new models as she connected with books like Brinton's Anatomy of a Revolution and Gladwell's Tipping Point. Maggie researched and realized her dream of directing and producing a musical while raising money for AIDS research. Susanna researched the limited popularity of opera in our community and created a public service announcement to save opera at a local theater. Dan's original research connected motivation theories with Eagle Scouting. He constructed a national survey of Eagle Scouts and shared his results with the Boy Scouts of America. This semester, Harrison's research led him to imagine a feasible plan for light rail in our city and a realistic strategy for better connecting our suburbs. In September, he'll be studying urban planning. Marlene's wonderful theater class, 14 kids collaborated with me. We researched, we wrote, we sang, we danced. We produced probably the first international sing-along keynote called The Wizard of Apps. I'll tell you why I believe there's been no more important time to be a librarian. It's complicated now. In the short span of just over 20 years, we've migrated from information deserts to information tsunamis. There is so much more to learn. There's so much more to teach. And I have never loved my work more. Libraries have evolved, or they should have. But library is not merely a place to get stuff. It's participatory. It's a place to create, to invent, to share, to explore. It's more kitchen than grocery store, more transformational than transactional. Library is morphing towards learning commons or libratory. It should be noisy. You should hear the sounds of podcasters and video crews and storytellers. Our virtual library is ubiquitous. It's open day and night. It's a space where it's okay to be beta, where you can function as co-learners and co-teachers teachers and where you can celebrate student work. My colleagues, many of whom are right here right now, are here to ensure that all students have equitable access to the tools they need to learn and create, and access to those tools is as much an intellectual freedom issue as is access to books. In terms of intellectual property, I am now more cheerleader than gatekeeper, teaching kids to flex their fair use muscles and to celebrate and contribute to the Creative Commons. My friends, I tell you, the world out there is not reading term papers. Even at the youngest level, research is not reporting. It ought to be a training ground for real-life decision-making, and learners must be able to persistently focus on and manage a problem until it is solved. There are multiple ways to read and write. Our learners must be transliterate. They will be able to leap tall buildings by reading, writing, networking, publishing, and broadcasting with talent and agility across media and platforms. For me, the effective storyboard is the new 5-paragraph essay. Our kids do pretty well on their bubble tests, and I can give you research that connects strong library programs with achievement. And if you like, I can give you a bibliography. But I'm also here to ensure that our kids become powerfully transliterate citizens. We're not there yet, but we're working on it. And because we're looking at the future here, here's my hope. I hope that in addition to counting the number of AP classes a school offers, or the number of 4s and 5s its students score, that we also assess their efficacy as thoughtful investigators and storytellers, as participants, that we assess the skills that have the longest legs. I will not discover a cure for cancer. I will not write the next Pulitzer Prize book. I will not direct the next award-winning indie film. But I hope I have students who do. And I hope that their work makes a difference. And I hope that my work makes a difference, even in suburban Philadelphia. And speaking of environmental scans, you don't need to do a hell of a lot of research to discover that mine is a species that some believe is endangered. And that's too bad. Because I'm sad for the growing number of Sallys and Sams and Dans and Maggies of this world, of this city, and in other parts of suburban Philadelphia, who do not have access to and may never have access to a shifted library or a strong library program. And I hope that when you are asked, that like our Sallys, you will take a stand. Because some new storms are taking out a few things that we really should have a plan to rescue. I'm a librarian. It's never been a more exciting, more rewarding, or more important time to be a librarian. Learners have never needed us more.